Like we mentioned earlier, we are the last day of the BRICS summit events that debuted on October 22, 2024 here in Kazan, Russia. And like we mentioned, some of the key resolutions were the adoption of the Kazan Declaration, which we saw yesterday. But I'm in the presence of an American journalist, Jason. Greetings to you.
Hi there. Good morning.
Okay, yesterday we saw the leaders that highlighted that BRICS is not a competition with any other bloc in the West, and we saw in the Kazan Declaration that there are some unlawful Western sanctions that are weighing on some of the members of the BRICS countries, notably Russia. So what do you think about that, and what's your appraisal given some of the key resolutions with the creation of a single, say, African countries trying to join the bloc, and the creation of maybe some sort of currency that would amplify economic growth within the bloc?
Well, there's a tremendous need for development financing globally, a very big unmet need in infrastructure in particular, and the Bretton Woods institutions have shown that they are not up to the task, that they are not providing what credit is needed. So in that context, the new development bank, which came out of the 2014 Fortaleza, Brazil meeting of the BRICS, at that time, Dilma Rousseff was president. This is a big breakthrough, and it was a major topic of emphasis here, talking about expanding this bank, expanding the membership, expanding the financing, and also developing new markets or new methods of exchange for settlement in national currencies. You mentioned the impact of sanctions on Russia in particular, but if any nation around the world should probably be scared about using the dollar right now, because you could get sanctioned and then you are in trouble. So it's natural that countries are moving towards national currencies. The BRICS countries are, I think, working towards a new payment system, but I don't think we're going to see something very specific on that coming out of this event this week, but it's moving in that direction.
Okay, we equally have a NATO ally in the country of Turkey that's interested in joining the bloc, though it's a part of the NATO, but then don't we have some sort of a conflict of interest? Because it's not the first Western country that is interested in joining the BRICS bloc.
Well, I know that France had wanted to attend one of the recent BRICS meetings and was not invited. Now, what we see with Turkey, I think that the advisor to the Russian president yesterday said, well, Turkey wants to join the BRICS, Turkey wants to join the EU, Turkey wants to join everything. Now, it's a good outlook to want to be a part of as many groups as you can. It seems that at this summit, there will not be announced new full members of the BRICS, but we have going on right now behind us, or right now, the expanded outreach format of the BRICS. So what will they do with Turkey? I don't know, but it's the right approach to want to be involved in this discussion here.
Exactly, a point that was amplified by the president of the New Development Bank, Dilma Rousseff, who pinpointed that it was imperative for more countries to integrate the bloc for it to be able to foster this global development, which this year's forum is focusing on. But away from that, the creation of the big cards was solicited and of course was welcomed by BRICS member countries. When we're looking at alliances within the global world, we're seeing new creations, new initiatives coming up. With this, do you see more cooperation coming up, especially as the world is headed towards amplified multilateralism?
Well, look, there is definitely a trend towards what's called multipolarity, and this is a good thing if it's seen as being different than a unipolar world. Ideally, the countries of the world would be collaborating so well that there wouldn't be even the appearance of blocs. But right now, we are seeing countries form new alliances, cooperating with new institutions like the BRICS, like the Sahel States Alliance, for example. We're seeing changes. Now, the real danger here is that although the BRICS is not anti-West, the West is definitely anti-BRICS by and large. And this is really what is driving the bloc confrontation. For my country, the United States, our true self-interest is not in trying to be number one forever. Our true self-interest is being a member of the world community and contributing our great strengths in fields like science and technology and other areas to helping the world as a whole develop in a way that's the right thing for human beings.
So, by so saying, are you implying that the United States might, and maybe some years from now, be interested in joining the BRICS?
I don't know if the United States would join the BRICS per se, because I think as a grouping, even though it is not anti-Western, it is non-Western, as I believe the Indians have put it. So I think that the United States could be playing a more positive role in the United Nations and other fora. The United States should be taking a leading role in reforms of the World Bank and the IMF, so that those institutions can do the things that they're not doing and which the New Development Bank has been created to do. If they were doing it in the first place, maybe we wouldn't need a new institution. Although I'm not opposed to the New Development Bank, of course.
Yeah, some of these sanctions we're talking about are sanctions that are in Western institutions, notably the call for reforms at the level of the World Trade Organization, reforms within the United Nations, reforms within the World Bank, and some, because it was reiterated that the way the discourse, the way they treat is not fair in terms of the way they have transactions, economic transactions. So heading towards a world where we have equality, inclusivity, do you believe that this reforms is actually coming at the right time? And is that possible?
Well, the right time, I think, for some of these reforms would have been a couple decades ago. But I'm glad that these reforms are occurring, and it is really very important that more countries are able to make their ideas and their voices heard on the world stage. A human identity is a shared one. All human beings are different from animals. Unlike any other species of life, we're able to discover principles of nature and culture and improve our relationship with our surroundings. That's the basis of economic growth. So this is true for all people. This is something that all countries could be collaborating on. When the United States went to the moon, really humanity went to the moon. The US played a special role, but this was a triumph for the species as a whole. It was an example of what separates us from everything else that we know of, and an example of the kind of visions or the kinds of aspirations that we should have, big dreams.
Just one last question. The BRICS aims for its de-dollarization policy, which is to reduce the use of the dollar and bring up maybe a new currency that could be able to boost economic growth within the member states, and of course even external parties. Given that the United States is one of those countries that uses the dollar a lot, do the United States feel threatened by some of those resolutions that are taken within the BRICS bloc?
Well, the United States is causing problems for itself. So the status of the dollar as a world reserve currency has been a tremendous asset for the United States. For one thing, it can basically print money in a way that no other country can. But it is spending all of the political capital, the financial capital, so to speak, that it had right now through unilateral sanctions, through restrictions, through kicking Russia out of SWIFT, things like this. The U.S. is debasing the potential value of its own currency. So this is really not in America's self-interest at all, and it is not sustainable. The US dollar is being abandoned or turned away from. It's still extremely prominent for international trade, but the trend is to avoid it as a currency. So this is it's an unfortunate and foolish policy from the United States that is opposed to the real interests of the United States.
Simultaneously, the leaders at this BRICS summit equally called for cessation of hostilities, collective effort to see how they can bring an end to the conflict in the Middle East. And now, there have been several rumors or allegations that the United States could be assisting Israel in its war in the Middle East, because you will note that if Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, if he's dragging on this war in as much as different global institutions have called for a ceasefire, it's because he has some sort of backing. So what is, with this new call for for a ceasefire. What's the U.S. stand as far as this is concerned?
Speaking for the official U.S. policy, or to my understanding of official U.S. policy, you call it a rumor that the United States is supporting Israel. It's a fact. I mean, clearly Israel could not be doing what it is doing without U.S. backing, both from the need for military equipment from the U.S. and also the political support that the U.S. is constantly providing. Secretary of State Antony Blinken from the United States was just in Israel, and he wanted to share a message saying, okay, now that you've killed so many people in Lebanon, it's time for peace, it's time for ceasefire. I don't think this will have any effect. The United States in the past has had presidents who told Israel, stop it, when they were doing something wrong, and they stopped it. So, unfortunately, the United States bears a great responsibility for what is happening, and certainly the American people, in my view, have a great responsibility for bringing to an end this deadly, tragic, horrible situation.
So you believe that the U.S. has the power to end the onslaught that's happening in the Gaza Strip or in the West Bank, or be it Lebanon?
Yes, of course. The U.S. could, I think if the U.S. firmly said you have to stop that, it will stop. The U.S. does not say this. President Biden says, well, we might consider sending you fewer weapons in the future. This is not a threat. This is not a call to action. I think that the U.S. could play a major role in bringing about a peace. Now, I will say that peace is not only the absence of war. You have to say, well, what kind of peace? So Lyndon LaRouche had proposed decades ago what he called an oasis plan. He said the most common enemy of the people of the region, it's not each other, it's the desert. So the projects that could be built for desalination, for bringing water from and connections between the Mediterranean, the Dead Sea, the Red Sea, this is a path towards a prosperous and growing region. And I think that part of the peace initiative has to include proposals for financing and achieving that development. I think if you only say, how do we stop the fighting, it's not enough. You have to say, what is the better future? What could we leave for our children?
So that was Jason Ross, an American journalist, giving his views as far as some of the resolutions of this last day of the BRICS summit is concerned. And Jix Napse, Sikandubalu Diallo, are reporting live from Kazan, Russia, for U Media Africa.